That brings us to unfinished business. Item number 10, strategic plan status update for the Glendora Station housing development, and Planning Director Kugel, Public Works Director Davies will both report.
Go ahead and put it up. Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. The Public Works Director and I have been working together on a status report update pursuant to the strategic plan. Go ahead and put it up on actually 3 projects, and I think it's timely based on a couple things that were discussed earlier tonight on the agenda, because one council member brought up the discussion about the Route 66 specific plan and development occurring. 3 of the developments we'll talk about tonight and in a couple consecutive meetings are related to the Route 66 specific plan, and then also the discussion about the Gold Line. The Route 66 specific plan and some of the development occurring around it are really working in anticipation of the Gold Line arriving in the community, and land use planning that has been occurring that started actually in the late 90s with the Alaska Corridor Committee and is now really starting to happen along the corridor, and will reach Glendora hopefully in the not too distant future after it completes its journey to Azusa. But let me start by talking about really the first project and giving you a status update under the specific plan as requested. And I also want to sort of dovetail and talk a little bit about the land use and zoning context that this is all taking place in, and this is just one project. This is the development at 351 South Glendora Avenue. There's a map on the screen showing you the location. It's at Glendora Avenue in Ada, and the council approved the tract map for the development of this project, which is actually almost completed in January of 2012. So just shy of almost 3 years ago when it was adopted, and it's getting near completion now. The site itself, just to give you a summary, is a 3-acre site. It is adjacent to the future Gold Line station. As you saw, a lot of it's under construction right now to Azusa. We're the first stop in the next phase of construction, so this project will be directly adjacent to the future Gold Line station. So in essence, this site will function as a gateway to the community for the riders of the Gold Line in the future. It consists of 53 attached condominiums or townhomes. They're each 2 to 4 bedrooms, 1,100 to 2,200 square feet. At this point, the last time we checked with the developer, City Ventures, 44 homes have been sold. 2 are pending in escrow, and there are 7 homes of the 53 left for sale. Those homes are brand new. They're obviously, and they are selling in the low to mid 400,000s for new buyers moving into the community. I want to just sort of, go through some photos. I think everybody's pretty familiar with the project who's driven down Glendora Avenue, but these are just these are some interior photos of the model homes that were available. I think these have actually been sold now, but you can kind of get a sense of the project itself from some of these photos that were taken. I will mention also that in anticipation and planning for the Gold Line, that the sort of the walkway that you see here going through, the city did get an easement, and it's been planned for many years that access to the Gold Line station and platform would in part at least be on a pedestrian basis through this project. This project was specifically designed and intended to accommodate that down the road. So I think that gives you a basic summary of the project and where it is in terms of its construction. It's almost done, but let me kind of maybe back up a little bit, because the community has been seeing a lot of construction, and talk a little bit about, I don't want to get too sort of geeked out on the land use planning, zoning sort of lingo, but I think it's important that the community and everybody understand, what's going on. These projects don't come out of a vacuum. They're all part of comprehensive land use plans in anticipation of things like the Gold Line that are occurring. And so let me just explain a little bit about the Route 66 specific plan, which covers the entire Route 66 corridor, and there's a particular focus around the future Gold Line station. As Councilmember Santoro mentioned earlier, the Route 66 specific plan was originally conceived in the late 1990s by a group formed by the council called the Alaska Corridor Committee. And that committee was comprised of business leaders and community leaders who took a look at the Route 66 corridor, and the concerns at the time were that Route 66 in general was dominated by a variety of marginal commercial uses, ill-configured lots, storage of, rather than businesses operating, many lots were and currently used simply for storage, and there was a general lack of investment along the corridor, and it looked to other communities who had done similar corridor revitalization in order for a way to develop plans and investments to generate development like we're seeing now along the corridor. The city ultimately, through the Alasta Corridor Committee, then, and through many public hearings and community input out of that process beginning in the late 1990s, adopted a Route 66 specific plan. And at the time, the community thought it was such a big deal, really, I think, representing a new direction for this area of the city, that it even changed the name of the street. Now it's Route 66. The lost is in the past, and I think the community collectively made a decision to really change the direction and look forward to the future and change the name of the street to Route 66, and that is a big theme of the street itself. Without getting too into the sort of the zoning details, it is important everybody understand that the corridor is a pretty long stretch of Route 66, and it's actually divided up into 6 sub-districts. And the area around the Gold Line station, where the project that I initially described, it's almost under completion, is being constructed, is intended to attract a mix of residential and commercial uses around the future Gold Line, and in particular to reinforce and to really foster a greater level of pedestrian activity and support the stronger commercial that is on the Route 66 corridor, such as the Albertson Shopping Center, within walking distance, the village in the area, and some of the additional height and reduced setbacks is intended within that Route 66 specific plan to create a more urban feel for the area in order to really support and attract the type of investment that occurs around Gold Line stations. The Gold Line stations coming here, there's a particular type of development that works in concert, and this plan is meant to complement what is ultimately coming to the community. So why Glendora? In terms of getting away from the zoning, very briefly, a lot of people, and I, living here, being on the soccer field and the grocery store, what's going on? Why is all this development coming to the community? I mean, part of the reason is, in the early 2000s into the mid 2000s, we experienced the Great Recession. In the meantime, we had already sort of laid the groundwork with respect to the Route 66 corridor. So as the economy started picking up again, we've seen a number of developers look at our community, and in particular the Route 66 corridor, as a place where they like to invest because we're creating incentives that will get them a good return on investment. They feel that they can sell homes, and also we're a great community to be in. And why is Glendora such a good place for private investment, and why are we seeing so much of it? Number one, we have a great location. I often tell people, 30 years ago, the Glendora, Covina, Laverne, San Dimas, we were the edge of the world in terms of suburban development. There really wasn't a whole lot east of us, and really the 210 didn't even completely get through going out further east until the early 1990s, and the 210 really, I think, arrived in Glendora about 1970-ish. I don't know, I wasn't around to really remember that, but it dead-ended at 50, okay, well, I remember that, but now we're centrally located. Now we really are within the region of the San Gabriel Valley, and within the greater LA region, we're a centrally located community. People who live here can commute in really equal distance because of the intersection of the 210 and 57 and the future Gold Line rail, and other ways to commute to Orange County, west, whether it be in Pasadena or all the way to LA or Burbank or Glendale. And also there's a lot of jobs within the San Gabriel Valley itself, and even within the small community of Glendora. There's a lot of people who live here as well as work here. And it goes without saying, we have 2 really great school districts which attract people, because not only if you do or you don't have kids, you always want to move to a community that has a great school district, because it means if you buy in a community, their property will hold its values. And thirdly, Generally, Glendora has a high quality of life. It's a safe community. We have many local amenities. Some whether it be the marketplace, having a Home Depot, a Sam's Club, those things close by. Not having to drive to Covina for those things, or some surrounding communities, or great amenities for the community. And I think also within the community itself, Glendora has a pride factor. Our motto is, pride of the foothills. And, having been around the San Gabriel Valley and worked in a few communities here pretty much all my life, Glendora is one of those places that if you want to move here and live here, you want to be in Glendora, and you have a lot of pride in the community you live in. And I think that means a lot. That's sort of an intangible that I think, attracts, private investment to the community. And I think that's really sort of a final reason why we're seeing that. Now, I titled this "Why Townhomes?" because it's another on the street. You say, why are we seeing this type of development versus, traditional subdivisions that really drove the community's growth in the 50s, 60s, and 70s? Glendora is primarily, most of the land is built out. And I think with part of the strategy with the specific plan, which I'll even touch on a little bit later, was to, growth is going to come, to this region. First of all, we're in Southern California. This is still a growing area. It's a big magnet for, a lot of people who want to live in the beautiful sunshine that we all moved here for if you're from another state. So most of the housing that initially attracted those folks is aging. And so new housing within this market is pretty unusual. This is an example of multifamily development, but we have other examples of single family development, and it's very unusual to see new housing, in a market like this where most of the homes are 40, 50, 60 years old. Also, there are things going on in the market where the housing market is a lot more diverse. There are people who are interested in looking for smaller homes near transit and other amenities that they can walk to and don't have to drive as far to. I think if you have an option of living in Glendora and being 20 minutes away from your job versus maybe my choice is maybe a brand new 1,800 square foot townhome in Glendora, or I can get a 4,000 square foot house in Rancho Cucamonga, but then I have to drive 2 to 3 times as far. And there's wear and tear on. So a lot of people, not everybody, but people will choose between those alternatives. A lot of them are choosing Glendora. And so what's being developed is actually part of the market that actually fills that demand. And I think also demographically, there's a couple things going on that are driving the need for different types of housing other than single family. Baby boomers are beginning to, age out, or maybe age out is a bad word, but they want to remain active as they get older, but they don't have a need for a 2,500 square foot home on a 15,000 square foot lot anymore. And so things like this can provide a way for those folks to downsize and remain in the community. And also Generation Y, or the millennial generation, who is just entering the housing market and really does not want to live in Rancho Cucamonga. Maybe they can't afford the pricey Pasadena area, but they still want to be in an area that provides, like this type of housing is that we've planned for around a future Gold Line station, where you've got the Glendora Village within walking distance, other amenities like a nearby grocery store. This is an attractive housing option for folks who are looking to buy a brand new home in a really good community where they can lay down roots and start a family, et cetera. And so that's what we're seeing with this. And so kind of in closing, my final thoughts on sort of this project and putting it in context with what's going on is that the residential component of Route 66, and not the whole corridor, is planned for housing. About probably around the future Gold Line station heading west has a housing and commercial component. The eastern part is still really 100% commercial, and so this section of the corridor really provides options for a growing segment of the housing market, like I described, and it brings investment to the community, where on Route 66 we hadn't seen very much over the past 20 years or so. And I think it also says something about you have to, communities need, in terms of responsible land use planning, which I think we've done going back to the late 90s, we have to plan for growth within the community. And with the specific plan, in anticipation of all the things that I've mentioned, the gold line, changing demographics, the aging, housing stock in some of the other areas, and providing alternatives, has really sort of, decided to invest in the future of the Route 66 corridor. Again, it was so important that we changed the name of it. And I think what it also means is that by doing that, the single family areas which dominate most of the community, really the majority, the overwhelming majority of land used in the city is single family and will remain that way for a very, very long time. Lastly, I think that, for those who were involved in the formulation and development and laying the groundwork for the specific plan in the 90s, should be really happy at this point with the way things are progressing, because all of the things we're seeing now, finally seeing, the development that was envisioned as part of this specific plan. So as we look forward over the next couple of decades and, see a few more of these projects, when the gold line gets to the edge of the community and comes through the community, I think when some of the benefits to the local businesses in the village and around the area are seen, I think it's going to be at least something you can say it definitely matches what the specific plan envisioned and what those folks who were conceived this in the late 90s were looking for. And so with that, I know I sort of kind of careened off. I started with that initial project and where it is, which is almost done. We will talk about the Avalon Bay project at a subsequent meeting, and we'll be talking about the La Colina development, which is the former Monrovia Nursery, at the next meeting. But that concludes my report on this project and touching on the specific plan, and I'm happy to answer any questions that the council might have right now.
And is Director Davies going to give a report?
Well, this started as, I actually started the report, and as you can tell, Mr. Kugel took over. So only to add that the project is very close to completion. There are some minor public improvements that still need to be completed. We are releasing occupancy in the 5th and final building, so they're very close to being completely done with the project.
Thank you. Does council have any questions? Seeing none, I